Welcome to Fundamentals for Startups, a CoMotion Labs production. My name is Siri Vimonchalau. I'm the CoMotion Labs Hardware Incubator Manager, and I will be your host for today. If you've joined us before, you know that CoMotion Lab is a multi-industry incubator hosting early-stage startups and innovations from both inside and outside the UW community. We are committed to nurturing and growing our startups, providing critical infrastructures and opportunities for learning, mentoring, and networking. And we do this without taking any equity or IP. We have 3 incubators in 2 locations on campus. In Fluke Hall, we have the Hardware Incubator and the Life Science Incubator. Here at Startup Hall, we have the Technology Incubator. If you are a founder looking for a community to help your startup grow and flourish, we'd love to talk to you. Fundamentals for Startup is a regular lecture series open to anyone interested in learning about entrepreneurship or starting a business. Every week, we bring in experts with diverse perspectives and experience to share insights, inspire action, and offer spaces for questions. A few announcements before we get started. All the Fundamentals for Startups presentations are archived on the YouTube channel and on the CoMotion websites, where you can filter by topic. To learn about and register for future Fundamentals events, visit CoMotion Labs online and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Today, I'm excited to introduce Lisa Norton, Director of Licensing, Physical Science, and Engineering at CoMotion, who will be our moderator today, and our expert panelists, Jen Haler, Chief of Staff at Ascend Venture Capital, Sarah Stutter, Connector, Something New, and Dilip Sivam, Entrepreneur in Residence at the Clean Energy Institute. Jen, Sarah, and Dilip are Seattle startup veterans who work closely with tech entrepreneurs and some of the most active funders in the Pacific Northwest. Between the 3 of them, they know just about everyone on the scene. Today, our speakers will talk about how to build and navigate strong, lasting professional networks based on mutual respect and trust. Welcome, Jen, Sarah, Dilip, and Lisa.
Thanks, Siri. Well, I'm particularly excited for today's panel, and so we're just going to jump right in. I'm going to start with Jen. Starting at ground zero, how do you start building your professional network?
Oh my gosh, diving right in.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Doing it.
Okay. Be positive. Come at it with openness. Come at it with trust. I think that's something that's been really successful or really helped me a lot in my life is leading with trust. And people can show me otherwise if they're not trustworthy, but I just lead with the trust, and that really opens up the doors for a lot of people and allows them to meet me and be vulnerable and have a more of a real connection. And I think the big thing is like thinking big picture. I'm not looking for transactional interactions. I want to build relationships, and you don't know what comes from that. So.
Great, Sarah?
Yeah, I would echo everything that Jen said. Approaching networking like it is a transactional relationship and like you are out to get something from the person that you are networking with doesn't work as well as approaching it with the perspective of I'd like to build a relationship with this person. I would like to know more about them beyond just what they do professionally. I'd like to know them as a person. And I think you'll probably hear us say that several times throughout this, because even though networking, I think, kind of gives people the ick a little bit, nobody likes to do it, it's hard, it's exhausting. Jen and I talk about how it is exhausting even for us who do it all the time. Yeah. If you're approaching it with curiosity, you can actually make it quite fun. So that's how I would approach it.
Dilip?
All right, and yeah, just to echo what they both said about not being transactional, I'll third that. That's very important. I would say if someone was just getting started out, honestly, events like this, right? So, I'll just put in a plug here, Fundamentals for Startups, every Friday here in CoMotion. But even other than this, people who show up to events like this are generally people who are interested in expanding themselves in some way or another. So, these are just really great places. And if you really are starting from zero right now, this is a great place. It's an event about networking, and I'm sure people will be here afterwards, and it'd be a little weird if people didn't want to network after an event about networking. So There you go.
Yeah, I mean, you said that we know everybody on the scene. I only know like 5 people in this room, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm really eager to get to know the rest of you, so that the next time that we're all in a room together, we can say hi to each other.
That's great. Thank you. So what do you all think is something that you should do when you're starting to build a network? Any like tips, tricks, like best practices that you all have? Anybody can start.
Yeah, I mean, I would send thank yous. If you get a chance to talk with somebody one-on-one, maybe in a more like a Zoom or an extended period of time together, send a thank you. Like, it's pretty easy and it's really meaningful. Not a lot of people do it, so there's kind of a quick, easy win for you right there.
Yeah, the follow-up is super important, and I'm going to also probably say this a couple times. I am happy to be connected with any of you on LinkedIn, but I'm not going to remember who you are unless you send me a note along with your connection request that reminds me that we met here on this day in this room at this event. Any of those things work. A lot of times people will come to me and say, hey, I see that you're connected with so-and-so. How do you know them? And I'm like, oh, I don't. I just accepted the request from them. And that's just me like trying to be nice or trying to build my network, or maybe even remembering for a split second that I had just met them at this event. But if I have to go back to that 2, 3, 4 months or even years later, I'm super sorry, but there's so many people that we meet on a daily basis that I'm not going to remember. And then if I can't remember you, then I can't actually help you. And that's my motivation, is I'm a connector. I like making those connections between people that help people get jobs, that help people find the right startup program for what they're trying to build. Like, that's my core motivation in life. I really enjoy doing that. But I can't do that if I can't remember how I met you. So LinkedIn, and we'll talk a lot about LinkedIn, does a lot of great things, but adding that note with that follow-up, I think, is just one way to ensure that you remain in people's minds. I have a few other tips, but we can come back to them.
Well, my favorite tip for networking is, particularly early on in your career or early on in the process of building a professional network, is to really network sideways. One thing I found is a lot of people think that networking is all about reaching for the most important person you have access to and getting to know them. And I don't recommend against trying to do that. But I mean, say for example, you get to have a conversation with some big CEO of a company. That person probably isn't overly involved in hiring, except at the executive level. And probably they're not going to subvert their entire company's hiring process just for someone they had coffee with. So, I mean, it's a lot more useful to get to know people who are in the same stage as you are. Or I shouldn't say more useful. Don't neglect getting to know people at the same stage as you are, because they're looking for the same opportunities. They're trying to make the same connections. And, if it's someone who's a little bit ahead of you in some sort of endeavor, let's just say, for example, you're in graduate school. Someone who's a couple years ahead of you, I mean, that's the person who's going to have access to like the hiring managers for the type of jobs that you're interested in and the type of opportunities you're looking in. So don't neglect looking out sideways.
Let me put an addition to the people that are a little bit behind you in their process. Like, it's so rewarding to have the opportunity to mentor somebody or to kind of know more than they do, or just be helpful to them in their journey, and that can help you feel more confident and feel like, okay, I actually do know something, or actually I can be helpful to somebody. So instead of like always feeling like there's, you're just striving ahead, reach back, and who knows, again, who they know and what kind of connections they're going to help you make down the road.
Yeah, and I can give a real life example of how this has worked for me. Earlier in my career, I started in nonprofits and philanthropy, and I was a grants administrator and grants manager for a small organization called Social Justice Fund. But as part of that, I joined a group called Emerging Practitioners in Philanthropy, who were these emerging managers in the philanthropic sector from all over the country. We had a local Seattle chapter. There were chapters all over the world, but it was all people who were in my same boat, who kind of had, at that point, I had aspirations of moving up in the philanthropic world, but I knew I wasn't going to get there by going to the heads of these organizations. It was only through getting to know all of these other people who were in my same boat, a little bit ahead, a little bit behind, that I was able to kind of build that network across the country that has been extremely helpful for me. And many of those people have stayed in philanthropy and are going on to do really incredible, great things. But I met them when we were just the same, when we were kind of at the same level in the same stage of our careers. And to have built that really early on has absolutely paid off, so that I now can actually probably pretty easily tap back into that industry if that's something that I still want to do, even though it's been, I'm not going to say how long it's been. You can look to my LinkedIn. It's been a long time.
those are all really great suggestions. And then on the other side of that, are there things that people shouldn't do as they're out networking? And again, it can start anywhere.
I can say from recent personal example, do not spill coffee on yourself when you're speaking at a networking panel. That is
And nobody knows.
my
Could be
number one
endearing.
don't do. I think actually Jen and Sarah covered this really well in their answer to the last question is just don't be transactional. At the end of the day, it's human relationships, so there are no hard and fast rules, but transactionality is something that most people don't like, and it comes across too.
Yeah, you can see it right away. Yeah.
Well, that being said, if you do spill coffee on yourself, I happen to have a Tide pen, and if
Always.
if we did not
That's why I
know
didn't
each
network.
other, and I saw you spill coffee on yourself, I might come and introduce myself to you and say, "Can I help you in this way?" And then we have a connection that has literally nothing to do with work. It has to do more with like an embarrassing moment, but something that someone can help solve for you. And
So
I
now
think
it's
we'd
a
be
tool.
Great friends. Exactly.
Great. All right.
Yeah, I would say, no, just transactional. That's the no. There's not a lot of, I don't think
Well,
there's
maybe we should
no's,
just
but-
give an example of what that looks like. Like I've met you once. You send me a note on LinkedIn and says, "Hey, I see you're connected to this person. Could you please introduce me?" I don't know you very well yet. I am protective of my network and my social capital because if I am trying to connect everybody to this one person, that's not a great use of their time. How are they to know that this is a very high quality connection that they should spend their time with versus this is somebody that I just met for 2 minutes at a networking event and they came and said hi. So if you're approaching it with that mindset, you're probably going to get more no's or even not a response from me because I'm like, no. In my mind, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. But if you build up trust with somebody, and I think Jen, you and I have a really good relationship in this way. If Jen refers somebody to me, I know that Jen takes them seriously, and she thinks that I could provide value to them, or they could provide value to me. And I hope that you feel the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know there's a number of people in this community that I know. Just if they send me a recommendation to talk to someone, I'm like, obviously yes. And I've got that from others that they've said, Jen, don't even bother asking me. Just make the intro. I know you're sending me great people. So
yeah. But I think
That's
that takes a while. Like that took me and Jen
Yes.
networking
Yeah.
with each other for a long time to become not only just two people in the startup ecosystem who knew each other and saw each other at events, but now we've built a relationship that has gone beyond the transactional, and I would actually say it's a friendship now.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We're on WhatsApp, so that's how I move my professional contacts up. If you get my WhatsApp number, then we're friends. But I think, keep that in mind. If you're approaching this and you're saying, hey, I see Sarah's connected to this person who I want to connect with, I'm going to connect with Sarah, make sure that we've had a couple of conversations so I know what you're trying to get out of that relationship and that connection that you're asking me to make. Because again, I get a high volume of requests like that, and it's hard to know all the time, kind of what the motivation is between those. And again, like this is social capital, we spend it. And I don't like to spend it all in one place. I don't like to spend it all on one person. I really like to prioritize helping women and people of color make connections. So for me, that's kind of how when I'm evaluating connections to make or networking opportunities and things like that, that's what I have in my mind, but that might not be the same for anybody else. So again, if you're approaching it with like, I'm just trying to get to that person, it's gonna really be quite a turnoff.
Yeah.
I did a blog post a couple months ago that was about how to request intros. Specifically, was request intros from your investors. But it's I've heard from others that this can apply, beyond just the specific topic that I was talking about. But it's about crafting a forwardable email and what goes into that forwardable email, and to understand so if you want me to make an intro for you. It's fantastic for you to just, I'll ask you to do it if you don't do it already, but create a forwardable email. It's directed towards this particular person that you're asking me to put you in touch with. Short, explaining what you're looking for, and then that allows me, it's clean, it's on its own email, and then it's clean, and then I can forward it to that person, and I can put my personal message on top of it, say, hey, you really should check this person out, they're fantastic, I met them here. It's just, make it easy on the connectors to make those intros for you. Think about it for yourselves also, because you'll be making connections for other people. That's not, we're just some examples of, but you all can be this as well for others. So think about what connections you're forwarding on, and think about how Sarah looks at it, and put a little filter on it when you're helping people make connections too.
That's great.
And I'll just add one example of what transactionality looks like, because I think that was good to provide an example there. Is, I mean, don't be the person in the room that sort of ignores everyone around you and goes for the most important person in the room. You know, it's never a good thing to do, but I suppose in one and done type situations, it doesn't really affect you long term. But in the workplace, graduate school, college, just anything like that, anything where you're around a lot of the same people, that becomes really obvious really quickly. And it really diminishes your ability to build a strong network.
Very true. Great. So networking can mean a lot of things. What are some of the common misconceptions that you've seen about networking, and what would you like to address here?
Networking is not just for extroverts. I think that, you know, people who are introverts might like look and think about networking and be like, this is so hard, this, you know, I don't like to do it, this is, you know, this is not an enjoyable experience, I am dreading it. And they might look at extroverts and say, oh, this looks so easy to them. So I just want to dispel the myth that it's easy for extroverts too, because it really isn't. I consider myself an extrovert, and I regularly walk into rooms where I'm deeply uncomfortable and I don't know anybody in the room and I'm not quite sure how to get a conversation started. So I think that there's a common misconception that it's easy for some people and harder for others. I think it's hard for everybody, or it can be in certain situations. And you know, I have some tips and tricks. You know, I always like to wear something loud when I am networking, because 9 times out of 10 somebody will come up and give you a compliment on the color that you're wearing, the pattern, the brightness, like whatever, and that opens a door that makes it a lot easier for me to get started on conversations and helps boost my confidence a little bit so that I can then, you know, go on and pay a compliment to somebody else in the next conversation. The other thing that I like to do is I like to try to do my research before I get to an event. So I have an idea of who might be there. So I can like look first of all to see like, are any of my friends going to be there? Because it's easier to network with a buddy. But also so I can see, you know, oh, this is somebody that I've been meaning to connect with. I'm excited to talk to this person. Like, I'm going to look out for them. So it is not easy just because people are extroverts and make it maybe look a little bit easy. It is not that easy.
I'm an introvert. I don't play one at work, apparently, but my trick is that I really dislike small talk, so I will go deep really fast. I will have real conversations quickly with people, and I really enjoy that a lot. I think I do it in a fine way. I don't think I scare people with it, but I just, the small talk just doesn't do it for me. So I like to get to know the person and just go deeper. It's much more fun.
And you know, I would say the biggest misconception that people have, and this is something that I suffered from, you know, years ago, is the belief that networking somehow has to be this weird, awkward thing, right? Like, you're not asking someone on a date, you're asking them to have a professional conversation, which is a total normal thing to do. You don't have to have some big reason. You know, you can just say, I want to talk to you because I want to hear more about the work that you do, or I want to talk to you because I have an idea and I'd love to bounce it off of you. So there doesn't need to be some big reason to network. It's just a normal thing that you can do, and you know, you should be doing it often.
People love to talk about themselves, so if you want to ask them if they'll do an informational interview on like how did they get to where they were, or like, but you know, understand what, you know, look at their LinkedIn profile, have an idea of what you're interested in, and just ask them how they got there. I think that's a fun way to meet somebody, and I'm pretty open to like having those conversations. I think
I love to tell people about my journey. Happy to always talk about myself, but I wanted to also point out something that Jen had said about a forwardable email. When you're crafting the forwardable email, make sure that you have the reason that you want to talk to the person. If you are, and I'm literally just going to make this up, but if you're like a bioengineering major who's looking to talk to somebody in a completely unrelated field and it might not make a lot of sense, and make sure that you call out the reason why you as a bioengineering major is trying to meet this person. There needs to be a reason behind it. It can't just be like, you looked cool, like I'd really love to know kind of what you're trying to get out of this connection, so that it makes it easier for that person to say yes, like, oh, they're trying to transition into the field that I'm in. Oh, they've seen that I've got this background that, you know, is relevant to what they're doing. So really encourage you kind of across all of the things that you're doing, the forwardable emails, the in-person conversations, try to make those connections, because again, it's about building the relationship, not about the transaction.
Always do double opt-ins. Like, don't just automatically put somebody on CC if somebody's asking for an intro. Get them separately to say to agree to it before you make that intro. That's key.
And just one addendum to Jen's point about the intro email is make that forwardable intro short. I just got a forwardable intro earlier this week from someone that was about this long. And I was like, it's just a few sentences, right? 2 or 3 sentences.
Yeah, take pity on your audience, like be kind to the person that you want to get involved in so that they can easily understand what it is that you're interested in, which I think kind of brings us to this next point. I understand that there are differing viewpoints on this. I'm excited to hear how they differ, but the question is, should you make specific asks when you're networking or just look to establish relationships? And I don't know, Jen or Dilip, which one of you'd like to start?
I'll go first. This is our staged point counterpoint
Totally.
section. I generally lean towards just forming relationships when I network, just getting to know people, maybe kind of lightly tossing it out there, what I'm interested in and what I might want. But I tend to skew towards the side of not making too many specific asks. My rationale for doing that is sometimes specific asks can be a little awkward. Like Sarah said, we work really hard to build our professional network, and we can't just forward everyone we meet to anyone we've in our network. Or sometimes in certain situations, making an introduction might be akin to sort of advocating for someone in certain instances, which is a hard thing to do if you don't know someone well. So I always tend to skew on the side of just making it relationship building.
Yeah, and for sure, relationship building, that's baseline. Lead with that. But if you do, a couple times I've had some specific asks from random people, and they knew who I was, and maybe they knew, I don't know. They, one was a student, and he was thinking about, doing a startup. He was thinking about creating his own startup, and he was looking for, I'm making this up, but product managers at a mid-stage companies involved in travel. I don't know, totally making it up. But he had something really specific, and that actually really helped me to get into my brain in that moment and think, oh yeah, actually I do know, somebody at Expedia, I don't know, no, not Expedia, but it helps. So if you do have a real specific thing that you're looking for, sometimes that can help the person you're talking to get an idea of where to point you.
I don't know if I'm supposed to pick a lane, but I'm going to stay
Pick
solid
a lane.
in the middle. You got to do both, and you got to do it all, and it's person specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. And sometimes it's like the foundation specific. Do you have enough of a relationship to make the ask? And if not, maybe you need to take one more step to get there.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you all have stories about how you've networked effectively in your career, and if you'd each share one of those. Or not.
You're good with stories.
Yeah. So, I think one of my, again, I just told you guys I love to talk about myself, and I'll tell you a little bit about my career, but there was a job, I used to run a co-working space called Impact Hub Seattle. It died in the pandemic. We're very sad. We wish it's still around. The team that was part of Impact Hub actually helped build out Startup Hall, so it's got Impact Hub vibes here. But the first time I applied for a job there, I actually did not get it. And they realized their mistake 6 months later and came back and offered me the job. And I said, yes, thank you so much. I would love to join the team. When it came time for me to transition from my job at Impact Hub, I was actually headed up to the UW campus, and I had lived here for, again, I don't know how many years. I'm so bad at years and numbers, but I had never set foot on the UW campus, and I'd lived here for like 10 years, and I was coming up to cover a class for a friend of mine who was actually the person who didn't hire me the first time and then did hire me. And I was coming up to talk at the class that he was teaching at the Foster School, and he ran up to me because I was lost. Again, never been here. Couldn't find it. He comes and finds me in Packard Hall, and he's like, hey, I know you're here for a specific reason, but I actually just heard that there's a job opening at the Burke Center for Entrepreneurship, and you'd be perfect for it. You need to go do an informational interview. Forget my class. You're getting interviewed right now. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's a transition. Let me put on my interview brain. I wasn't exactly even looking for anything at that exact moment, but that person, that experience and that history that we had, we of course were friends. We were coworkers. We were friends after they departed the hub, and then of course it was wonderful that they were able to think of me as this position came up. But that's what a network does. It works for you. And so that was really a wonderful moment. I did end up getting the job. So I am an alum of the University of Washington in that I was an employee for almost 3 years. And then that was actually the first person that I called when I was transitioning out of the University of Washington and then into my next role. And that was to just get a gut check on, what is this job opportunity that I have? Do you think that it's a good opportunity for me? Does this make sense in the next step of my career? So that, that is my example of something that was an interview gone wrong, turned right, turned into my next job opportunity, turned into, a sounding board when I made my next move. And I don't think that necessarily would have happened if I hadn't been super intentional about keeping that person up to date and keeping them top of mind and vice versa. So I think that for me is one of my favorite, look at how my network got to work for me in career transition moments specifically.
That's great.
Next.
Yeah, sure. And so this is a little bit broken record because it's going back to my first point, but I think it's an important one, and I think it's topical here. My first 2 jobs that I got out of grad school were both basically arranged for me by people who were a couple years ahead of me in grad school, but not in the same department as me. I'd met them at events like this, so meeting people at events like this, keeping in touch with people who are relatively peers. They were a couple years ahead of me, but more or less peers. Honestly, probably the biggest head start that I've ever gotten in life was from being at the UW and being a graduate student here and attending all of these kind of things and meeting a lot of people and trying to form relationships with them. And now both those folks, this was couple decades ago. Now both of those folks are still actually really good friends of mine. So it worked out on that sense too.
I have a connection who, for the past, I think about a year, has been looking for a new CFO role at a startup in Seattle. And she has done a fantastic job of keeping her network updated. So she sends out about every 3 months, she'll send out an email. It's personalized to me a little bit, which is fantastic, but I also know she's sending this basically the same message out to everybody. But she details out, the connections that she's made, the people, the jobs that she's looked at, the things that she's been writing about, the things she's been thinking about, and then she also has some specific asks. Let me know if you know anybody at X, Y, or Z company. And I think that's a real powerful way for you to keep yourself focused on what your goal is and what you're going for, and just keep yourself accountable for moving forward in the process of your search. And it's really meaningful to me to get those updates from her and see her progress. And I totally reach out to her when I think of something. She stays top of mind. I think that's another thing that helps her stay top of mind for me.
That's the same advice we would give to anybody in a startup also, just so you know. Your investor updates are really important.
So do it.
Just because you don't get responses from them doesn't mean that people aren't reading them, and the point is to stay top of mind so people know about your journey and they know when they can help you. So.
And the asks. I love the asks in those investor updates.
Sorry, we just transitioned into startup stuff,
good.
but this is about networking, so
There's
I
some
think it goes for
crossover.
both.
Are there other great ways to sustain your network? I think you guys all touched on that a little bit in your answers. So emails, updates are definitely one. Are there other good ways to do that?
Posting on LinkedIn regularly about things that are happening. That's the easy. It's not necessarily easy. I spend a lot of time working on my LinkedIn posts, an embarrassingly amount of time. But I do think that keeping people that's a great way to keep people updated. It really truly is the first place that people go to learn anything about you. So if you're trying to be no, I'm not going to be on LinkedIn because I'm going to try this other thing. I'm so sorry. I'd love to try that other thing too, but I'm going to go where the people are. So I'm going to look you up on LinkedIn. But the other thing that you can do on LinkedIn is and share other people in your network's post, and that's the easiest thing that you can do. It provides them additional boost of visibility, and I certainly am grateful to people when they do and share my things. So if you're trying to build your network, show me that you're engaged in my content also, and then of course I would love to return the favor once you are posting things that are relevant too. So I'm sorry that I just said that because I can't everybody's LinkedIn posts, and I don't expect you to mine. But sharing something like that is building community, in a really easy way. It doesn't cost you any money, and it certainly doesn't cost you very much time, less than a minute to hit or heart or whatever it is. So I always encourage people to consider that an active way of showing that you're engaged and you're interested in what somebody is doing.
And I think a phrase that Jen used that was really important is staying top of mind. Now, obviously, you can go too far by spamming people or just posting silly things. But outside of that, I think sometimes there's a perception that if you're not actively getting some return from some sort of thing that you've done, like a LinkedIn post or an update email or just meeting people, there's a tendency to think that unless you get some immediate feedback on it, that it was not worthwhile. I've found actually to the contrary, a lot of times when I've talked to people who I've known a while, a lot of times they have noticed the things that I was doing and they have noticed the things that I was showing up for. They didn't just come running up to me right instantly and say, oh, I notice you, right? But they do. Like you work your way into people's brains as someone who's out there and engaged. And so anyway, I thought that was a good phrase, staying top of mind. Yeah.
I've been just shocked at how powerful LinkedIn has been, where I'll run into people and they're like, oh my God, you're so busy, you're doing all this stuff. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I didn't, like people know a lot about what I'm doing, and I have still maintained to not put much thought and effort into not too much programmatic thought into what I'm posting on LinkedIn, but I am, thoughtful, recognize that it does reach people. So I think it's a fantastic tool. I think we're probably kind of on the top end of it, and I imagine how things will go. It'll probably go a little bit down, but we're in the heyday right now.
Well, and I'll just say, I put a lot of thought into it, and I am trying to, I don't know if you've all noticed, but I am trying to really work on my LinkedIn, and I'm trying to create value in two different ways. One is to be rounding up job posts that are from my network.
Huge.
And my network is nonprofits, philanthropy, higher ed, academia, and startups in tech and VC. So that's a lot of different things. There's actually a surprising amount of overlap in that. But I do try to curate at least one post a week or maybe one post every 2 weeks that is that job roundup. And those get tons of shares, tons of engagement, and tons of likes. I'm not sharing every job that I see. I'm only sharing jobs that I actually would take myself, regardless of if I'm qualified for them. So hopefully with kind of that transparency, you know that this is a list of places, people, organizations that I trust that I would recommend working at. And then the second thing that I try to curate is opportunities for startups to get funding, to apply for programs, accelerators, and things like that. So rather than sharing each one as it comes, I do try to round them up, because I think that's just a little bit more, for me, a little bit more useful. If I were somebody looking for opportunities, there's just one post that I can go to. So I think we're a little bit on a different end of the spectrum of where I'm really making an effort to curate, and figuring out the emojis to put in all of those posts takes me the most amount of time. It's exhausting. That's the hardest part. But for me, I'm trying to kind of create a voice in that way so that it's providing the most amount of value. Whereas Jen's posts are often like great opportunity with an on-fire company, like join this. And I trust that, and it's one by one. But I know that her strategy is to share the things that are really top of mind and really impactful for her. I think we're just a little bit different in the way that we're curating those.
I love how you curate those.
Yeah.
It's so
I owe my LinkedIn community a post or two. And
you get it, yeah. I was going to say I don't connect with people on LinkedIn that I haven't had a conversation with. So I have my settings to default to follow, and it took me a while to get comfortable with that. But I saved the connections for people that I know, people that I could recommend, people that I could recommend for a job or other connection. So I just wanted to say, don't feel bad if anybody doesn't accept your connection, but you can always follow them, and then you'll still get all their content.
Excellent point. And I think that's a source that probably most of the folks in the room know about. But what are some unconventional networking sources, other things that people might not have thought of as a networking opportunity or platform?
Co-working spaces. I know this is one. You are in one, so you're here and you're doing it. And again, I'm a little bit biased since I used to run a co-working space, but there's an incredible amount of serendipity that can happen when you are just in a space where like-minded people, and you could be working on something completely different. This is a tech incubator space, so you're most likely going to find people working on software products here. But just by running into somebody as you're both going to put your cup under the coffee machine, striking up a conversation has been, I think, one of the most fun ways to just get to meet people that you see every day. You pass in the hallways, you're not working on the same thing, but you're in the same space. And so if you have the opportunity to, spend time, become a member at a co-working space like Startup Hall, or any of the CoMotion incubator spaces, or at places like the Collective, or honestly, so many of them unfortunately disappeared during the pandemic. But finding yourself and putting yourself in spaces where other people who are like-minded and are also maybe building, I think is a great opportunity if you're able to put yourself in those spaces. So I always tell anybody who's new to Seattle, join a co-working space, because especially since we've been so isolated over the last few years, this is a great place to come and meet people. And so congratulations, you're all here, you're all doing it already. You can check that box, and hopefully you'll meet somebody interesting.
Yeah, I had a good unconventional one that worked really well for me, and when Sarah was talking about coffee, that's what reminded me of this. My first job out of graduate school, I worked at a company. It was in like a 5 or 6 story building. We had like maybe 7 or 8 coffee/break rooms. I made a point to never grab my coffee in the one that was closest to my office, because I figured, I worked that was mainly being used by people that I had tons of FaceTime with anyway. So I would always just kind of go around the building and grab my coffee and eat my lunch somewhere else. And honestly, it worked great. I met one of my best friends. It was someone who's one of my best friends that way. I made all sorts of connections that helped me out with promotions and sort of hopping around the company a little bit. Just learned really well how the company operated overall, as opposed to just understanding how my section of it is. So yeah, I think the meta point there is just go to places that you don't always go, and you'll meet people that you're not going to meet otherwise.
I think that's a great one. And while we could certainly spend, depending on who we are, either more or less time networking, what's that balance? How do you find that balance between networking and your job? Unless networking maybe is your job.
Yeah, I think it is the job. I had an aha moment when a week or so ago preparing for this, and I'm like, oh yeah, networking, it's fine, it's easy, whatever in my head. And I'm like, wow, I really need to take a step back and recognize when I walk into a room, people want to talk to me because of the job that I have, because of the role that I have. So what my point of that is, I just wanted to really recognize that it's my perspective is obviously different than what others are looking for in that networking space. So I don't know what my point was. I just wanted to acknowledge that. If it looks easy, it's I have the benefit of people wanting to talk to me. So.
I can pick up on that. I am very much a person who my personal life and my work life are just very, very similar, and that's probably, I don't recommend that at all. Have some separation for sure, but for me, networking most of the days is the job. My job is to meet as many founders as possible within the Seattle ecosystem. That's the job that pays me. But also it's something that fills my cup and gives me energy, and I like to know people. A satisfying, great day for me is when I've made a great connection for somebody, and that can happen at any point in time during the day. So, Jen and I also, and maybe you go just to a very high number of events on a weekly basis. There are days that I go to 3, if not 4 events in one day. Usually see Jen at least 2 of them, because we, of course, are running in the same circles. But I don't recommend that as a strategy, because it really can take a toll. It really can be quite exhausting. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah, we get. Oh well, and taking a break during. We were called out a couple weeks ago. Amanda called.
She's in the room.
Yeah, there she is. We were at a networking event at Columbia Tower Club.
Yep.
And it was super crowded. I didn't know a lot of people there. I knew a few people, and it was quite overwhelming and loud. And I knew that there was the cool women's restroom upstairs. And so we went up there and hung out for a while. And Amanda was like, oh, so tell me more about this talk you guys are going to give about networking. And we're like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And she like, took a picture of us, and she's like, look at you guys hiding out in the back. Take a break. Walk away. Take a break. Yeah. I think you had a story about when you were at an event and it was overwhelming, you didn't know what to do, and you were going to leave.
Yeah, so this goes back to my point about how it's not easy for me, a person who networks all the time, to be comfortable in a room. A year ago, whatever, again, I'm bad at time, but a while ago I walked into an investor and founder event that was at Urban Bitter up on Capitol Hill. Great space, really good food.
It's too loud.
It was too loud.
It's always too loud.
It is too loud. Too loud, and it was crowded, and I walked in, and the event was set up such that there wasn't anybody to greet you, so you just kind of had to walk into this room. And I looked around, and it was a lot of really tall men were in the room. That just was something that struck me, and I was like, and I'm kind of standing there on the sidelines, like looking around, trying to find that person that I knew so that I kind of had an into the conversation, and I couldn't find anybody. I didn't know anybody. I stood on the sidelines. I ordered a drink. I drank my drink. Nobody came to talk to me. And I was just so deeply uncomfortable that I actually turned around and I left. I was like, this is not a space for me. I don't feel welcome. I don't feel comfortable. I can't be here. And I didn't have it in me to like go insert myself in a conversation. So just again, as a reminder, like it's not always easy for those of us that do it all the time to do that. And I wish that I had kind of had a little bit more energy maybe at that point to have gone and made the most of that. But what I did is I turned around and left, but I didn't get far. I made it to the front door of the bar, and I ran into somebody that I did know who was coming in. And she was like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "Not my scene. Lots of just tall, older white dudes. Like, this isn't for me." And she was like, what are you talking about? Come with me. Get in there. Like, I'm going to introduce you to people. Here we go.
Do you remember who
it was? Minda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you don't know Minda from First Row Partners, she's not going to let you leave a room. She can always make a connection. But what ended up happening, it was still, uncomfortable. But of course, when you have somebody with you to help break the ice, it makes it a lot easier. So bring a friend is one of my other tips. But what actually ended up happening is she ended up introducing me to the organizers of the Flywheel Conference, which is an investment conference out in Wenatchee. Because of that introduction, they invited me to be on a panel at the conference, which was super awesome. I wore something bright and loud, so networking was not hard for me on that panel and at that event. And that was great visibility for me and my personal brand and for our company. And that wouldn't have happened if Minda hadn't, very intentionally, escorted me back into the room and started making those introductions. So think of that as another thing that you can do for other people to help ease their networking journey. Yeah. Even if it's not a group that you know well or anything, you might know people and you might be able to bring somebody along. And that's something that I think we can all do to like lift each other up and help build this ecosystem and connections, is to be paying it forward like that.
Great. Well, I think we'd be remiss as a networking panel to not welcome some Q&A. So if people have questions, this would be a great time. Sally's going to come around with the microphone. Thank you.
Sure. I think she raised her hand first, but well, here, I'll just stand so you can see me. Hey, appreciate all of the wisdom and advice. I think just kind of asking along that same note, how do you best network in environments where you are uncomfortable, where you may not fit in, it's not your scene? Especially, I'm asking as a startup founder, when you kind of got to do that networking, where is the point where you just kind of say, okay, it really isn't for me, or it's something I shouldn't do because of that disconnect? Or is there really every point to just continue and push forward and ask to do that networking?
So I will answer your question, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to the room. Who are you? What is your company, and what are you building?
Yes. So, how's it going, y'all? My name is Nathan Abico. I am a co-founder. Me and my brother founded Virtu, which is a social media e-commerce platform that connects community brands to conscious consumers. And yeah, I've been here before. I've actually met Jen at a previous startup event. So it's not my first time here, but yeah, great to meet you all.
Awesome, thank you. And I always make people do that because that's just a great way for us to remember you and also for everybody else to know who's in the room. So for anybody else who has a question, please make sure to introduce yourself. It's really hard just to answer your question. I've been in those shoes before, and again, I just shared that story. But I have a couple of different tips. One, I try to find somebody who looks as awkward and as uncomfortable as I feel, and I try to connect with them. I actually got it. I used to work for Living Social, running some of their experience. Remember that company? Running some of their experiences a long, long time ago. And the way that I got that job is they had us do this huge, big group networking interview. It was super weird, but they had us all network together and talking to one another, and they were the employees were kind of on the outskirts watching how we interacted and engaged with people. And my strategy for that was like, this is weird. I've never been in an interview like this. Who else looks like they're uncomfortable? Because what they were trying to see was like, how do you engage with people who maybe are on the outskirts and are not feeling, like this is the place for them? And I ended up getting the job because that was my strategy. I just looked for people who were like this doesn't, it looks like they're super uncomfortable too. And then I was able to create some really great bonds with those people. And then we were able to go in it and step into the room, into the center of the room, and do it together. So that gets back to kind of having a buddy. But if you don't have a buddy, find a buddy. And it wasn't easy, it was super hard. The other thing that I try to do is if I really don't know anybody or I'm getting engaged with an organization or something like that, I try to find a job to do. So I spent a long time early in my career being like a volunteer at events and I'm not saying do that because I don't, I think people should be paid for their time and their work and all of that, but it was an organization that I cared about the mission, and I started just volunteering at their registration table. And when you do things like that, when you say, hey, I'll run registration at the AI Tinkerers event, which is an event that Jen runs. When you're running an event registration table, you get to meet every single person that walks in the door. So you have that immediate connection, and you end up oftentimes being the person who has the best sense of who's in the room. So for me, those were kind of two strategies that I've used when I'm feeling deeply uncomfortable. And then, I also don't love saying this, but sometimes you just have to keep doing it. You have to keep showing up. You don't always have to show up with I'm going to meet 20 people. But if you can give yourself a goal of meeting 3, I think you can call that successful. And then maybe next time you meet 4. And if you can get 2 LinkedIn connections out of that, that's great. So I'm also a person who likes to set goals and incremental change or incremental steps along the way. So those are just some things that have helped me.
Yeah, I was totally going to say exposure therapy. Just, do it to take tiny bites. Maybe it's just talking to one person and go. And if you feel, and if you feel exhausted and done and it didn't feel comfortable and you want to go home, go home. There'll be more events. And pay attention to yourself and how you're feeling and honor that. I mean, it is uncomfortable, and I think the more you do it, the less uncomfortable it gets. But don't kill yourself trying to do it, and don't beat yourself down for, not feeling really comfortable with it also. That's normal.
Yeah, and I would say somewhat similar to Sarah's tip about trying to work the registration desk or having a job to do. I found if there's an event that you're going to where you're not going to know a lot of other people, or for some reason you think that it might be awkward or uncomfortable for you, be one of the first people to show up. Because oftentimes, the first couple people that show up, there's not a big crowd. They sort of have to talk to you, right? And so and I find that most people do the opposite, right? If you're going to a place where you don't know people or somehow you're new, that can feel awkward, and when people feel awkward about something, they tend to put it off, right? So in this, do the opposite. Be the first person there.
That's funny. My reaction to that was oh God, no. But it's so right. It is right. I always go to events early, but the organizers of the event are always there. If you go early, you've got a chance to talk one-on-one. They'll be more likely. They'll be reaching out to you to have a conversation. So genius. Yeah.
Or you might get enlisted to do a job, which
Give yourself something to do. Yeah. I love that. I think that's really smart. I'm a very on-time person, so I like to be early. Yeah. I think there's plenty of people in Seattle that like to register, show up super late, or register and not show up at all. I would love to take this moment to say, please don't be the person that registers and doesn't show up. It's very frustrating on the event organizer side of things because we can't plan for you, but also you might be missing a great opportunity. So if you can't come, be sure to let people know, because I'll remember that you told me that you couldn't make it, but I will also remember if you didn't come.
Great. I think we have another question in the back.
Hi, I'm Catherine Bottichar, and I'm the co-founder of Tiny Earth Toys. We make modular dollhouses. And I just moved here from North Carolina a few weeks ago, and we have a really great startup ecosystem there. And I'm wondering, Sarah, you started speaking to this about co-working spaces, but what are other resources to get to know the local startup ecosystem and get involved?
We get this question a lot.
Well, it's not going to be around. We'll work on creating a newsletter.
Oh no, it will.
It will be.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So my favorite resource is the
Seattle Startup Digest.
Seattle Startup Digest. Thank you. So this is a weekly newsletter that comes out on Monday mornings, and they do a fantastic job of curating all of the events that are coming up in Seattle, and I recommend that one most. I'll leave it at that. There's others, but yeah. If you wanted to reach out to me on LinkedIn and tell me that you're looking for, I have a list of, anybody can do that. I can copy the list that I have of resources that I use to find networking events here.
Fantastic.
And also, so just, I mean, right here at the University of Washington, right? We have CoMotion, we've got the Burke Center, we've got Foster School, Clean Energy Institute, I'll put in a little plug for them. All of these events, plus all these departments, all of them are running events that are relevant for startups or general networking, and you know, they're for the most part free, so why not?
It's also, thank you. It's also business plan competition season. So it's a great place. Like, there are going to be VCs, angels, other people in the room anyway. Go listen to some pitches, but meet everybody who's there to do the same.
Yeah, and I would just add there are some really signature events that happen on a monthly basis, and so getting plugged into Founders Live is one of those. That's a monthly pitch competition in which 5 different startups pitch their business to an audience, and then the audience votes, and you know, one wins. And there's, I think, they're happening all over the world, and so I think maybe they do a session where everybody who's won gets to pitch against one another or something like that. But that's a really great networking and community event. New Tech Northwest is also a great networking community that is meeting on a monthly basis, both here in Seattle as well as I think they are starting up a Bellevue East Side meetup. And then there's also actually a co-working space called Venture Mechanics Co-working, which is really has a high volume of events that are happening. It's, I think, over in Redmond, and I don't ever really go to the east side, so I haven't been. I can't tell you what it's like over there, but I've been really impressed by the types of events that they have been hosting. And then there are other signature annual events that I think every startup founder and that has on their calendar, and that is Ascend's Founder Bash, which is happening on September 12th.
Yep.
That's a really, really fun one. Huge 1,000 people, well, at least 1,000 people register, but a subset of them show up.
Some people don't show up. Weird. Yeah, that's all. That's for if you identify yourself as a founder or an investor,
Yeah.
You're invited to that.
And then Jen and I are both on the committee for the upcoming Seattle Tech Week. So I think you mentioned that you maybe have more of a consumer product business, which you know, that I would say that is a little bit of a weakness in this ecosystem, support for that. But I think you can learn a lot, and like whatever you're building sounds super cool, and like maybe I'm a customer, so you should absolutely be showing up at these places and telling people about that. But anyway, that will be happening the last week of July and within the first week of August. And so that's going to be a high volume of events and networking opportunities that will be sharing more. I think a save the date will go out in the next month or so, but something to have on your calendar. It's the week before Seafair, so people are generally, hopefully, still in town for it. But I think last year was just a beta test of that event, and this year I think it's going to really go really full force. And so I hope that we'll see the full strength of the Seattle startup community, and not just startups, tech community come through for that series. So those are just things that I would put on your calendar for now.
Yeah.
Also, Vancouver does a startup week as well. Tacoma does a startup week too. And so always worth scrolling through their lineups and schedules to see if there's something for the niche that you're in. But ultimately, it's just a lot of fun. And then CoMotion, of course, here they're hosting these weekly Friday events. They do a number of other things. So I always like when people come into the building, since this is where I'm based out of. But you know, if you also have an idea for an event, like, happy to chat about that. Like, I love spinning up new things and seeing if we can build new discussions, panels. You know, we did a really fun speed dating event with investors and startups that we're going to be bringing back. But I think there's a huge opportunity to get creative. And you know, we as people who are organizing these things all the time, you know, sometimes fall into like the same old thing, but would love new and fresh ideas. And I'd love to help support building new things. So feel free to connect with me on that.
And I think that's something really important that Sarah just said about you can be the person to organize these kind of events. You know, so I mean, you can go to places that run events themselves and pitch them an idea. Like, hey, I have this idea for an event that you can do. Most places that run events over and over again are looking for new ideas and are looking for people who can help sort of guide the way on a new idea. And just another example, I know a guy who started an energy sector happy hour, and it just started out with people meeting at a bar and hanging out and not doing
you just
anything.
pay your own tab, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not,
Exactly.
Doesn't need to be hosted, or doesn't
yeah.
need to sponsor. You just show up. Get
Yeah,
started.
exactly.
Oh yeah, and Seattle Startup Friends is another one I'd add to that list. I think they meet on Tuesdays at Fremont Brewing and on Fridays, and it's Friday. So I think they meet tonight at in Capitol Hill, I think. don't quote me on that. If
4 p.m. at Stoop Brewing.
There you go. I was right. 4 p.m. Not even tonight. This afternoon. Okay, great. Awesome.
Do you guys have an opinion on paid events where you need to pay to show up?
Generally, it depends. If I get the perspective that people are trying to just cover costs, I think that's fine. Every now and again, I've seen a couple events where I get the impression that they're trying to make money off of building other people's networks. I don't love that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of costs, I don't like to charge people. Like I like when things are free. That being said, I don't like when people don't show up. And so if you have shown that you can pay a little bit and that guarantees that you're going to maybe actually attend, I think that's really important. This is something that we in events talk about all the time. We're always like, what do we do about this? Because 100 people have registered, 30 people show up, and it's a free event, but I've paid for 70 people to be there. Or it's 100 people who have registered, and 60 of them have shown up because everybody paid $20 to be here. So I don't know. We go back and forth about that all the time. But again, I'll use this as another plug. Show up if you register for things. This is my opportunity to try and spread the gospel of actually attending things that you say you're going to attend, or letting people know that you can't. And people are waving at us like this. This unfortunately has to be.
Yeah, I know. We knew this was going to happen with great networkers, so I'm glad that you guys are going to stay for a bit. And thank you, Dilip, Sarah, and Jen. Siri, close us out. Thanks.
Well, thank you all for joining us today, and from everyone at CoMotion Labs, a big thank you to Jen, Sarah, and Dilip for sharing their story with us. Remember, next Friday at noon, UW Bioengineering lecturer Dean Petit will present Building Out the C-Suite Team. Sign up today, and we'll see you next week.